I'm not down for that.
Live.
That's
Okay.
like the next level of Harry Potter intensity. Like we used to line up for 8 hours, and now we have to talk about it for 8 hours. That's the evolution of Harry Potter obsession, right there.
I think we should definitely have an 8-hour live stream at one point.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Well, hey, they do it sort of for equality for the win. How long was that live stream? I heard
48 hours.
it was a long freaking time.
It's awesome they do 24-hour. So,
Yeah,
so
there you go.
talk about Harry Potter, but
It can be done. Yeah, if they had talked about Harry Potter, they probably could have gone on for like another 24 hours.
Probably.
clearly. Anyway, Harry
Anyway,
Potter.
Harry Potter. Harry Potter.
/ Sorcerer's Stones, chapters 4 and 5.
The classy
Yeah.
chapter.
Are the Keeper of the Keys and Diagon Alley.
Yes.
Diagon
Yes.
Alley makes me so happy.
Yes, that is the best chapter ever.
Absolutely.
Quite a good.
Well, actually, so is Keeper of the Keys. I mean, that's a pretty
So much
great
Hagrid.
chapter.
Hagrid is so great.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is a fact. That's not an opinion. That's an objective fact that Hagrid is great.
He's like one of the most unproblematic characters in the history of literature, which is actually a really difficult title to have.
Except, I have this question for Hagrid at the end of Diagon Alley. Hagrid, you put a 11-year-old boy on a train alone. What are you doing?
Well, he's not the most responsible of adult figures. That's true. But like also to be fair, like he did drop Harry off like in a motorcycle. Like he carried infant Harry across the sky in a motorcycle, just clutching Harry with one hand, and then like was he steering with the other? Like is that distracted driving? That's also pretty sketchy.
There's magic.
Mhm.
There might have been some charms involved.
Well,
Don't
there you go. So completely justifiable then.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
There's a post going
I
around.
also have questions about Hagrid takes the boat from the hut on the rock.
Mhm.
What did the Dursleys do? That
I've
was rude.
always wondered that.
Magic? It's okay. They don't really deserve to have
It back for them.
No, they don't deserve to be stuck on a rock.
Well, maybe for a little bit, just to think about their life
what they did?
stories so far. I'm sure. Well, they had to have gotten back eventually.
I mean, clearly, because they took Harry to the train station later.
Exactly. Exactly.
6 that we haven't got to yet, but
Yeah, we'll get there. All right, moderate this
Compared to
discussion.
them,
for
they're
us.
living with a Horcrux. So,
yeah. Did you guys see that post about them living on Tumblr?
yeah.
Sorry?
There's a post that's been going around on Tumblr about the Dursleys lived with a Horcrux for 16 years, and I was talking about how like Ron and Hermione get super cranky. They've been with a Horcrux, so maybe that explains the Dursleys.
I guess. Well,
And the entire their common room.
but Harry should be the one who has like the most justifiable crankiness, and he seems to manage all right. And he's been living with a Horcrux for literally his entire life. So,
No, there was a year he didn't have it.
Yeah.
You're
oh, that's
so.
right. That's right. Well, regardless of that, that 1 year in his infancy where he had like neither motor abilities nor abilities of speech, for most of his awareness.
Cronus. His Cronus is from when he was a baby. He was just dreaming of his life pre-Horcrux.
Yep.
I remember once I was happy.
I don't think you have memory at that. Like I can't remember anything before I was like 4 years old or 5 years old.
I don't remember.
Yeah. Maybe he shouldn't remember. It can't have been the most pleasant of times. Though that's actually, I know this is not at all related to these chapters, but that's okay. We seem to be on a tangent. Like raising and nursing Harry. Like did Petunia do that? How did she do that? Like you just wonder. Like, cause she must have been like nursing Dursley or Dudley.
Yeah.
Right? And like taking care of him as a baby. And like, okay, I get like, by the time the kid could walk, he was like making pancakes. All right, sure, that's fine. But like ages 1 through like 4, like how did they treat Harry? I just wonder, just what happened? I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall or like a social worker.
Yeah. It's also really interesting to think about Harry's like life in Muggle schools and like how much did his teachers know about what was going on at home and
Totally. Or like there was literally no children that like were at all empathetic to his situation. It just seems so, I mean, I guess it's possible, but it makes me sad to think about.
yeah. I know it's weird.
Sorry to bring the mood of this whole thing down. All right, carry on. My wayward son.
We could just start talking about chapter 4. So
Okay.
chapter 4, when I was reading it, I saw a lot of like parallels for looking at like force assimilation and like the way that the Dursleys resist Harry knowing anything about his like ancestral identity, if you want to call it, or his like some sort of like ethnic or religious identity of Harry's, and they're like, nope, he can't have it. Nope, nope.
Totally.
I think there's like really good parallels or allegory in that.
Yeah, I agree.
You know what's interesting is like as a culture, there's like, okay, so you know how you've got like the postmodern like feminism and you have postmodern like racial movements and things like that. There's like a postmodern, like the reading of Harry as not white is like a very strongly accepted reading now in like postmodern Harry Potter fandom. Like no, but like I mean, I'm just like scrolling, like you're scrolling through Tumblr, right? And you see like
Yeah, but Tumblr isn't the world.
well, it's my world. but I mean, but like even like you're scrolling through Tumblr, right? And you see like, okay, Marauder's headcanon, okay, Peter Pettigrew was relevant once in his life. Oh, and here's a Black Hermione. And like it's just like it's becoming more and more like mainstream. Is that the right word? It's interesting. And so like you look at, and there was that article that came out today from HPA staffer.
Alana, BuzzFeed, she's great.
Alana, that's right.
Yeah,
she is phenomenal. But it's just becoming like a more validated reading now, and I think that's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Like readings of Harry Potter shift with whatever is relevant with the times, which is kind of I guess what happens with all literature, but
yeah,
with Harry Potter it's really fascinating because you have that massive following, that like very persistent following that just has not yet died off and like clearly never will. So you can have conversations of like reading like his lost ancestry and like think about it in terms of him as being like a potentially a symbol of racial identity, of lost racial identity or ethnic identity, and I think that's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
The article, Lana's article on BuzzFeed is called "What a Race-Bent Hermione Granger Really Represents." By the way, just being recorded. If anybody wants to look that up, they can find that with those words. Now it's officially recorded into history forever.
Into the history of your you can add descriptions on videos, right? We should link in the description.
There is a description.
Can we not do that?
Oh, yeah, when I start the thing, it makes me write a description if I want one, and I did. And so I will add that later.
Cool. Then we can say link in the description, and it will be totally relevant.
Awesome.
Description.
I feel like a real vlogger.
Yeah. It's like vlogging without the editing, honestly, which is my favorite way of vlogging. I'm doing all the editing.
It's the most honest way of vlogging. Sort of.
Kind of. You can still script. Although it is live stream, so that's even more honest than just like filmed and upload, which I usually do when I vlog. I just film and upload. But maybe I should just do live streams on my channel. I should just be like, all right, I'm gonna make a video right now. I'm just gonna live stream.
Just go for it. Okay, here I have another thing. Like, so this is kind of the first instance where you see like Hagrid's loyalty to Dumbledore. Mm-hmm. And like, okay, so I get Dumbledore vouched for him, and Dumbledore is obviously a very well-respected figure in the wizarding community, and I think it's also well accepted that he's like an extremely problematic figure. So like, do you think like Hagrid ever sees through that, or is he always going to be like just this naive sort of follower of whatever Dumbledore wants him to do?
That's interesting because I wonder, does Hagrid know that Harry went to go die because Dumbledore raised him to be that way? And because I don't think he does, but
No, he definitely doesn't.
I think if he knew that bit of information, Hagrid would have just been like, "Excuse you, Dumbledore?
Yeah, like F you, Dumbledore."
I'm gonna go right now, dig you up and strangle you to death, even though you're already dead." Like
Hagrid is to Dumbledore what Molly is to everyone. Or Hagrid is to Harry what Molly is to like all of her children. Like when Molly has the iconic like, "Not my daughter, you." Can we swear on this live stream?
It's in the book. I feel like if you're
It's a direct quote.
quoting the
I think we all know the word, though. I think it's made clear now.
It's been made clear. But like when Molly has that moment, that's the moment that I would envision Hagrid would have if he ever found out that Dumbledore played everyone.
But I think he'll also always have a hard time seeing that because Dumbledore was one of the only and one of the first people to actually see him as human.
So, or accept that despite his not being human, he's still like a valid.
Yeah, I mean more. Yeah.
I feel like Hagrid would just need to spend some time in the fandom processing, and
Yeah.
we would help him out.
So meta.
He all has to
So
process.
meta. Absolutely. So I like this reading. So if you read like Vernon and Petunia's like resistance to letting Harry know or access all of his heritage and his culture, if we're going with like that reading, and then is Hagrid like the agent of culture? Like how does that fit into that?
I don't know if there's any sort of technical term for it, being Hagrid.
He is the Hagrid. That he is his own entity.
But I think it is just interesting to look at it kind of in a like allegorical sense and not look at them as individuals, but kind of like a like instead of saying the Dursleys did this exact same, but instead saying like they represent cultural forces that like ask people to assimilate or like to be normal. I mean, I think that there's a lot of, it's very blatant in the books that the Dursleys are like, be normal, and Harry's like, I'm not normal, I'm not be normal. Like it's not a very deep.
But I don't even know if they ever really try to like normalize him. Like they definitely don't make it easy for him to fit in at any point, right? Like they're not facilitating his like entry into mainstream Muggle culture by any means. If anything, they're making it like more easy or easier to ostracize him.
They said we swore when we took him in or something like that. Like they were
like
out. I'm not sure it's that they want. See, if you think of it as like if you think of it as like an immigrant coming into another country, and you think of it instead of saying like in the U.S., okay, we're gonna make this person white. It's not we're gonna make them white. We're just gonna like stamp out the non-whiteness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they're just like gonna stamp out what's not right. They're not gonna make him a Muggle. They're just gonna stamp out the non-Muggle. It's not
like the Native Americans when like people would take in white people would take in Native American children.
Yeah.
And be like, we're gonna scrub the Indian out of you. We're gonna turn you white on the inside.
And that worked out so well.
We're gonna adopt from Africa and make him an Oreo.
Oh my god.
White on the inside. No, that's yeah. And it's interesting to think about like when people want to access parts of their like ancestral culture, the way that like society might respond to that. Like Kwanzaa, I think, is one example. I don't know if I wrote this in the prompts, but something I think of is that when people mention Kwanzaa, they're like, oh, it's a new holiday. It's not a real holiday. It's made up by people. And it's like, all holidays are made up by people.
Dot, dot, dot. Like, gee, where did Christmas come from? And we were just born with those calendars. Like,
which doesn't make them not valid.
Yeah.
Human made. All of culture is human made. It doesn't make it not valid. It's But it's interesting the way that we will, and I say we in a very like broad general, not like we us three sitting here. We like do that with other people's cultures where we're just like, I don't know what the word for it is, but yeah, it's just it's interesting to look at that and then to use this as a tool to talk about that with people who may not understand why that's a really sucky thing to do.
Totally. And like, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go. I know. I go.
Like, it's also interesting to think about like the extent to which Harry's identity, and then if we're extrapolating, like anybody's identity is tied to their like cultural history and cultural heritage, because like, okay, so they're trying to like stamp the wizard out of him, but then what is Harry without his wizardness? You know what I mean? Like, like he's reduced to being like literally nothing. They want him to be nothing. Like, you go upstairs, you make no noise, pretend you don't exist. Like, that's what they want his entire existence to be. And like, and then it just reminds me of that whole, like, this whole thing of being like race blind. That's apparently like a very in thing to be right now. Like, oh, I don't see race. I wish you could see my face right now, so you could see the great impression that I'm making right now of everybody that's ever told me that. But like, oh yeah, I'm blind to race, like, which like is problematic because it's like ableist and racist all in one. But like that idea of well, you have like an inherent identity that is distinct from your culture, so it doesn't matter so much if we just like get rid of all of that excess baggage, that historical, symbolic baggage that you came with. Like, but like, and I guess it just comes back to the idea that like mainstream culture is like the core identity. Like, that is what everyone is at the baseline, is like white Christian, whatever, male, etc.
We're all like Christian.
Sorry?
All of us here are Christian males.
Absolutely. I know I'm a white Christian male.
Me too.
White Christian heterosexual. Yeah, Dory definitely looks like a white Christian male to me. But then like Hagrid comes in and goes, oh, you're not a wizard, hey? Like, you never made anything happen to you when you were like scared or angry, and like ties back every kind of gut emotion reaction to his like inherent wizardness, and like I guess makes Harry aware of like a deeper part of his identity. And then so just basically, I don't know, in the context of this reading, like reminding us that like you can't just like take the insert race, ethnicity, culture, whatever out and like just be who you are independent of that. Like, it's all, intertwined in some irreversible way. I hope that made sense. I'm going to look back on this and be like, where is this going? But yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah. If you want to read up on a thing that's happening in West Papua, this has been happening since like 1963, where Indonesians, I think, I read the article earlier. It's on Al Jazeera's site, and it's a really good article about how they're trying to force cultural assimilation, and it's not going that well.
Forced assimilation usually doesn't go too well.
Yeah.
The extreme cases are genocide.
Yeah. It's
assimilate.
Very sad and
yeah.
Well, I feel 100% comfortable with my own assimilation, so yay! I wish I could wear the party hat. Can we use those here? Probably not.
You need your video on to have party hat.
I do, don't I? I'm gonna make my video work. I want it to happen.
You try turning it off and back on again?
No, I haven't tried that yet.
It works quite well. Hilda and I sometimes have that problem.
No, the Dursleys said that to Harry after they found out he was a wizard. Like, have you tried just turning that off and then turning it back on again?
I think that fixes everything.
Amazing.
Did you try turning your identity off and back on again? Maybe you'll recently be white Christian male, cisgender.
Incredible.
2.5 children? 1.5 children? 2.5 children? I think it's 1.5.
It is 1.5.
1.5, yeah, because 2.5.
Like 1 to 2, yeah.
You have to share the one child with your neighbor.
Oh, that sounds actually quite accurate. Joint custody arrangements and all.
What about this idea that the expectation that even Hagrid has that Harry's going to be famous when he gets to Hogwarts? Like, that's kind of an interesting. Like, as soon as I said Hagrid isn't problematic, I was just like, wait a second. And then all of these things. I guess no character is unproblematic, but that's a pretty heavy expectation to lay on an 11-year-old kid who not only has been neglected and abused his entire life, but also just found out that everything he knew about the world was completely false. By the way, Harry, you're gonna be famous. Just by the way.
Gonna be, yeah. Already are.
That's true.
Yeah. It was a nice warning, at least. It would have been way worse if he had walked into Hogwarts and everybody had been staring at him, and it's like, why the crap are you all looking at him?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of the things I had for Chapter 5 was talking about, treatment of famous youth in general. But yeah, it's really, I mean, I don't know what Hagrid could have done other than be like, by the way, Harry. I mean, he could have been more like, hey, Harry, this is going to be a lot to handle, but just so you know, to prepare you.
Yeah.
But that's just not how Hagrid works.
That's just not his character.
No.
Nope.
Hagrid's like, whoops, shouldn't have said that.
Yeah.
Before we move on to Chapter 5, is there anything else in Chapter 4? I guess I did mention...
Muggles thing, right?
Yeah, the word muggle. I just have this thought, is that a derogatory term? Because Hagrid just throws it out there oh, a muggle like you. And if it is there a non-derogatory term, or is there one that's worse?
This kind of culture, Wizarding World culture, where muggles are lesser than already, that's kind of inherent or implied. And it's through no fault of their own, but either they're these despicable people who are actively oppressing the Wizarding World, and then that spawns people like Voldemort, or they're these infantilized creatures who don't know any better, and then that spawns people like Arthur Weasley. And then you have the perfectly reasonable Hermione Granger, who despite being a Muggle born herself, I think still sees her own magical prowess as making her something more. There is already kind of that inherent. And I don't know if it's necessarily I don't know if Hagrid means for it to be. I think the despicableness of the phrase here is more directed toward the Dursleys than it is directed towards Muggles in general. But
yeah, it's just interesting to think about within the context of their world. Is there a non-derogatory, non-magical person? I guess.
I mean. Yeah, I don't think, I don't know. That's a good one. I'm not sure.
I don't know. I thought he called him a non-magical magic when Harry asked.
Yeah. I think you're.
Am I echoing?
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
Everyone's echoing.
Am I echoing?
I'll try and mute.
Am I echoing?
A little bit.
I'll try and mute when I'm not talking, but Life is hard.
Okay.
I'll try and put my headphones in again and see if that makes a difference. Everyone, brace yourselves.
Okay. The echo's better. Wait, no, it stopped. Maybe.
Is it better or worse?
Better.
Better.
Really? I'll just never be free.
I think the echo is better than the.
Yeah.
That's just my personal opinion, but.
See, I can't even hear any of it, so I'm just going off of your cues. Because I'm the source. I am the problem. Your fave is problematic.
It's so true, because yours is my fave.
That's so endearing. Okay, cool. I don't know. Maybe I can like chat to you my feels.
You're
do a
echoing
dramatic
now.
reading
It's
of
fine.
them.
It's fine. You stopped echoing.
Is it okay now?
Yeah, I'm not hearing myself back from your.
Cool.
I don't know what happened. You turned it off and turned it back on again or something.
That must have been it. Okay, lead us to this next great adventure.
So we were kind of segueing towards talking about like the treatment of Harry as a famous person. We were just sort of getting into it. And I think it's a really interesting thing to talk about in the context of like our world, comparing, I don't know, how other famous youth, specifically youth who are famous for being like a victim of some sort of violence. So I think Malala is maybe I just said that wrong, is a really good example of that.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was basically famous. And I feel like the way she gets treated by our media is very similar to the way Harry gets treated, where it's like, oh, this cool person who got hurt, martyrdom, yeah, and like without really a whole lot of recognition of like there was a beep sound or a woof sound that was that threw me up. Not really much like recognition of like the social cultural context that made that happen, and any sort of like any sort of efforts to respect her voice on how to address those issues. I feel like she just gets exploited more than actually respected, like which is what happens with Carrie a lot.
Mm-hmm. And also, like, I mean, there's a lot of, Islamophobia that's kind of playing into the perception of Malala as well, and like, I think I like a very deep kind of structural desire to reappropriate her as an American voice as opposed to
Yeah.
Middle Eastern or Islamic voice. Like, there's a lot of that happening as well. And, like, I mean, you also do see that to a certain extent with Harry. Like, everybody wants him to be, like, their voice or idol or celebrity. Yeah. Everyone tries to kind of claim ownership over him.
Yeah. It's actually, the second book is a really good example of that with Lockhart, because Lockhart just grabs him and is like, look, Harry Potter supports me!
Right.
We're taking a photo op together.
Absolutely.
That whole book is a really good one on fame and exploitation of children.
Definitely.
And the fourth book is great on like the media and man, Skeeter. But the first
interesting one, that's for sure.
We are. Yeah, so it's just really interesting to think about that and then kind of figure out like how should people in Harry's world treat him if they like actually were to care about Harry. Like what would that look like to care about like a famous young person?
Like, I think
Molly Weasley.
Yeah, but I mean from people who don't know Harry, so
yeah.
People want to care about Harry because he was a hero, he stopped whatever. That's fair. But what would like caring for and respecting Harry look like from somebody who's not close enough to actually house him and everything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like when she first meets him. Well, I guess that's coming up in another chapter. We can talk about that then. But how she tells everyone not to stare and
Yeah. Yeah,
another person for his first day.
as a human and not just as a commodity to be exploited.
Yeah.
Like, I think this is also like a really relevant conversation in the context of like the YouTube quote unquote scandals and things like that, and all of the conversations that were happening as a result of like how do you interact with celebrities, and I guess not quite as relevant to this chapter, but like how do celebrities interact with their fans, and I guess that's a whole other conversation of like what makes a celebrity, but like also just keeping in mind that like the people that kind of do a little bit, I don't know if it's like accidental appropriation if that's the appropriate phrase there, but like Harry's 11 and the people that he's interacting with are like also 11-year-olds, like they're just kids,
not
right?
not in this chapter.
Right. And yeah, they're all,
But then he is interacting with 11-year-olds later on who are
right.
Freaking out. But also the 11-year-olds end up being a lot better at dealing with Harry being famous.
Doris Crockford.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Even his name, man. Like.
Yeah, the 11-year-olds are like, Harry Potter? And then you're just like, okay, dude, whatever.
Yeah.
They're like, let's share this sandwich. It's great.
Yeah. Or they're like, you're now my arch nemesis.
From 0 to frenemies in 3 seconds flat.
Oh, Draco and Harry are great.
Yes.
Great relationship.
Hex yeah.
I just love 12-year-old Harry. He's gone and like fought Voldemort twice, and his he's still like Draco Malfoy is my arch nemesis. I'm like, Draco Malfoy is not trying to kill you. I'm gonna read this link later.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is interesting. I might put this in the description on the video later. Thanks for that, actually. Yeah. Anyway.
Oh, that's really cool.
Famous people. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and like the thing is that like none of these people at the Leaky Cauldron are overly offensive, and they're not like rude by any means or anything like that. But at the same time, they're also not recognizing that like Harry Potter is an 11-year-old kid who's famous for like he hasn't done anything. He just, I mean, apart from surviving an awful attack, like he's famous for being an orphan. Like, is this really something you want to remind him of by like formally shaking his hand? And at this point he doesn't really know, right, why he's famous.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know, maybe they don't know that, and they just see him as like this person who ended this terrible thing for them.
Right.
Yeah.
Who made them a safe place.
Interesting thing to think about that I just thought of right now, though, is what if some of the people who are like, Harry Potter, great to meet you, are actually people who are upset about Voldemort, not being around because they were supportive of some of those ideas. And are overcompensating because they know the socially appropriate thing to do is to be like, oh, Harry Potter's great. And they're just like, okay, I gotta go greet this kid and shake his hand and make sure everybody thinks that I don't think Muggleborns are less than me, but really I do.
Well, that's basically what Quirrell does, right?
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, actually.
But Diggle was in the Order of the Phoenix both times. He's the one with the hat that he kept bowing and dropping it.
Right.
That's why that name seems familiar to me. Yeah.
He's the one who took the Dursleys away in the last book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Treatment of famous children and famous people in general, but especially children.
Yeah.
Especially children.
It's a complicated thing.
Yeah. I feel like I would not go up to a famous child in public and greet them.
No.
Yeah. I mean, like sometimes I just wonder if the wizarding world had any kind of like rules of socially acceptable behavior. Like, cause like I mean, sometimes like you just read it and like within the context of the Harry Potter universe, and like a lot of us read this book growing up, so we were just like, oh yeah, obviously that's a perfectly reasonable thing for someone to do. But then like reading back, like really, like what were your rules of appropriate social engagement? What were you taught as a child beyond please and thank you? Like I just wonder, you know?
Define British stereotypes.
Yeah. Exactly.
Uh,
I have another thing that is not really at all related to child celebrities.
but
Um but so I don't know. Is there anything
go ahead, go for it.
okay. Um Quirrell's stutter. Like I've very rarely seen a character with a stutter, and then it's the guy with like another evil dude stuck on the back of his head. Like, thank you.
I mean, that's all people with stutters have an evil dude on the back of their head. That's the lesson here. That was sarcasm, just to be clear.
Absolutely.
Totally clear.
Common knowledge. People with stutters are, but like I mean, it just goes back to like disability representation. Like, what other disabled characters are there in Harry Potter? I don't even know.
Moody
Moody,
has
yeah.
a physical disability. Also, he has a vision disability, which is also an ability. So he's missing an eye, but he has a magical eye. So
He's got a touch of transhumanism. That's what they call that, right? Yeah, like, amazing.
not with otherkin.
No, no, it's like
It sounds like trans species.
it's like this whole movement of like people who want to like better the human body. So for example, there's this I need to find his name. I'll try and find it. There's this like famous rock climber who had an accident when he was younger, and I'm not sure what happened, but they had to amputate both of his legs from like the knee down. So he has these like new like feet leg things installed, and he's now well yeah, but they're like yeah, but they're not exactly because they're like curved things. I'll have to find it. But
I know what you're talking about.
yeah.
Yeah.
So now he can do rock climbing at like a better and a faster pace than he could before his accident. And so it's this like whole movement of like transhumanism, like elevating the human body as a result of your impairment or your
Yeah.
you know Moody's. I don't know if Moody's eye would like fit into that category because like as a result of whatever happened to his eye, he can now be more and further.
Lupin is another disabled character.
Sorry?
Yeah.
Lupin is another disabled character because he has
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. Can't really think of many other.
I mean, they're few and far between in literature in general, let
Yeah,
alone.
no, they are definitely, and that's unfortunate.
It is.
But then when even like Lupin, like that's like you have to have almost like a more thorough like constructionist understanding of disability to recognize his lycanthropy as a disability.
I mean, it's treated as an illness, but it's treated very much in the same way that AIDS was treated. So it's
Yeah. Right, but even like so have you ever like people who don't think that AIDS is a disability but is an illness, like people who make that distinction, right?
Yeah.
Like that's still like a very prevalent
Yeah.
perception. So, like, the people who are explicitly portrayed as quote-unquote disabled, um, are, like, the grisly, like, Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher or the very, very clear antagonist who, like, dies an awful, awful death at the end. Like, he's not even spared, like in terms of like how he dies like very painfully. And I just wonder, like, I mean, I'm sure it's not an explicit implication, but like, and he didn't even really have a stutter. Like, there's that he wasn't actually disabled. He just
Yeah.
faked it.
Yeah, it's speech impediment.
Yeah. It's.
Yeah.
I thought of another character, but I don't remember what it was. What was I thinking of? I had some connection with disabilities. Harry Potter. I don't know what it was.
Well, Fred loses his ear? Is it Fred or George?
Oh, George's ear. Yeah, that's true.
George's ear. Yeah.
That's a good point. Oh, I know what it was. I was thinking I've seen some people who read like Hermione as being autistic, in the books, because movie Hermione is a very different character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Movie Hermione is like Supergirl and has no flaws, and it's like that's her flaw. It's that she's not flawed, and it's like unrealistic, and she steals all of Ron's good lines. But in the books, Ron is the one who has like people smarts, and Hermione has like very little people smarts.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting to read her as autistic without like her being stereotypical necessarily.
Yeah.
So not like doing anything that says, "Ooh, this is autism." She's not obsessed with train schedules. Like they didn't go with the the most obvious stereotype of autism possible, but
Right.
but then it's also not written in. That would be the same as like similar to Dumbledore or Aaron Goldstein. Goldstein? I forget how it's spelled. I think Goldstein. Because Dumbledore's gay, like outside of the series. He's not
Right.
like non-text, and Aaron Goldstein is not Aaron. Why do I think his name is Anthony? Anthony. Wow. Okay. Anthony Goldstein
You got there in the end.
is Jewish, which J.K. Rowling just recently announced, which shouldn't have been that surprising to people because his last name is Jewish. But he's not like there's nothing in the text that says that he's Jewish. It's just J.K. Rowling tweeted it, so it's different with representation when the author just says later, like, oh, by the way, that character was this thing, versus when it's in the text.
Yeah, I kind of dislike when she does that. No offense to J.K. Rowling. She is the queen.
Yeah.
I love her. I mean, very clearly, I do love her. But like,
Yeah.
I don't know, superimposing like how we're meant to read her text after the fact kind of just
I don't like that.
Yeah.
brushes me the wrong way.
Yeah. It's. Yeah.
Because then you miss
Pottermore is entirely made up of her telling us how to read her text.
exactly. But then like you miss those like valuable culturally relevant readings, like this whole reading of like, you know, a race bent Hermione or like any race bent character or Hermione as autistic. Like I'd never heard of that, but that's really neat. Like it just discredits those insights when authors or when anyone really claims like, you know, authority over how we're meant to read a text. Speaking of like Jewish characters, is there like a little bit of what's a not awful way to put this, but with the goblins, the way that the goblins
so
are.
that's a thing that somebody pointed out to me. I think it probably was like Andrew Slack posting on Facebook at one point
Of course
about.
it was.
I mean, it's always Andrew Slack.
Yeah. Hi, Andrew. If you ever watch this.
I'm not sure Andrew still knows there are chapters forums, so. I know
he's watching this. He does now.
No, I've told him multiple times.
Oh boy.
Oh, Andrew. Oh, there's noise in my house. I'm gonna headphones it. Where am I? Where is my? Oh, they're on that side of the computer. Oh, oh. I did. Hello.
Hello.
Okay, cool.
You're like
So-
extra, your voice is like extra crisp right now.
Oh, okay, because the microphone is like right by my voice, probably. That's probably what's going on. Yeah, so goblins, and yeah. So I was actually reading through stuff on like different opinions on that too, on the internet, and seeing what other people were saying about that. It's interesting to think about that, because I mean, I wouldn't say that J.K. Rowling's like explicitly anti-Semitic.
No.
Yeah.
And I don't think she was even aware of it when writing, especially when she comes out with like Anthony Goldstein, like, yeah, it was based on my friend. Probably it was based on her, like the last name was from her friend or something. I don't think
Right.
she was like,
Yeah. And from a folklore point of view, I mean, the description of goblins is sort of like consistent with the European folklore thing, and like
yeah, that's one of the things I was reading,
connotation.
is that the way she wrote goblins is very similar to the way goblins have been written about for centuries. So she didn't invent these stereotypes of goblins.
No.
But that doesn't mean,
Yeah.
like, if somebody does
They're not
something racist and you just copy it without noticing that it's racist, that doesn't make you
Yeah.
like
No.
devoid of any responsibility for it.
No, definitely not. But
Well, it's kind of, I think it kind of falls in the same category as like when people, especially in movies and like in fantasy movies, where the enemies are like, at first they used to be like vaguely Russian, and now they're like vaguely Middle Eastern, and like,
Which
you
we
know,
talked about when
when you guys start like a war with Canada, they're gonna have like a vaguely Canadian accent, like, like it's just like the cultural shift, right? But yeah, like, I don't know. It's interesting. Like ultimately, I think what bothers me about the goblins the most is that like you kind of start understanding their history, and their history is like, I mean, like it's almost meant to be read as like this one-sided view of it, and like up until a certain point you can accept that there's like a lot of conflict, and like, probably wizards and goblins were both at fault at one point, but then like ultimately at the very, very end of the series, when you have the like penultimate interaction with goblins, the goblins suck. Like they just completely fall in line with their stereotypes, steal the sword, you know, and are made to be like this one-dimensional enemy at the very end of it. And then, so if you had any question as to whether or not goblins were at fault in that big like goblin rebellion, don't you worry, wizards were right all along, and they were like, that kind of makes me feel like,
yeah, it doesn't sit
not
very
the most
well.
comfortable.
And also on the portrayal of goblins, something else I was reading on the internet is that the movies, the way the visuals of the goblins were designed, was very similar to like 18th, 19th century anti-Semitic British art. So it's one thing to read the books and be like, wow, these stereotypes of the goblins are very similar to the stereotypes of Jewish people, and that was kind of not cool of you, J.K. Rowling. But when the movies go out and visually recreate the anti-Semitic art, then you're like, okay, that's where we've crossed the line from like just following with folklore that's existed for hundreds of years to like taking the folklore in a direction that's not okay. Because there are other directions you could have gone with the visual appearance of the goblins that wouldn't have been as explicitly anti-Semitic. And it's just weird in the context of like Europe, especially with their history of anti-Semitism. obviously.
Mhm.
Because like if you transferred it to an American author in an American setting, and the that race of whatever, maybe they're giants and the giants all happen to have dark skin or something, and they're
Yeah.
like, and it started to sound like it was like all black stereotypes, then you'd be like, okay, hold on, that's
Yeah.
yeah. um, then it becomes really problematic, even if you also have in the race of wizards like, oh, black wizards, but then it would be like, yeah, but you have that race, that stereotypes. um, yeah. So then I guess the question becomes is like, what do you do with that, like with the idea that goblins and the portrayal of goblins in Harry Potter is potentially anti-Semitic? Like, what, I don't know, how do you, what do we do with that as
Yeah,
like a fandom?
like I mean, I guess it just comes down to like recognize it, acknowledge that it's there, and like like even that like just verbally acknowledging that like this is kind of a problematic representation, just FYI, I think goes a long way. Um, and like I don't know. I think there's like this. It's weird that there's this perception that like fantasy and yeah, fantasy, like the magic genre has its like set of rules that like unwritten rules that have to kind of be followed. Like J.K. Rowling was working like she has a very like deep knowledge of like classics and of classical mythology and things like that. And like to a certain extent she is working within the bounds of classical mythology and like I think and there's a historical precedence for a lot of her magical creatures and I think that's totally cool. But like then she doesn't always follow it to a T, right? Like she adapts it to suit her needs. So like then the question becomes why wasn't this one of the things that could have been changed, you know? Because I think
Yeah.
that would be the first and like you see that so often when people are arguing about like representation in Disney movies and then people, the main argument being like, well, it's set in insert white country here, so they obviously couldn't have black people in that time period, and like
Frozen.
all this stuff, right? But it's like it's a freaking Disney movie. Like there's magical powers and two-dimensional characters, and you're telling me like you couldn't bend the rules a little bit? Like I'm
We
sorry,
can have a
it's
character who sets an
violent,
entire kingdom frozen into an eternal winter, but we can't have non-white people in this country.
exactly, exactly. That's exactly it, right? Like there are certain rules you can violate as long as it suits like your narrative interests, but like God forbid we go against the racially biased stereotypes that have been in place for hundreds and hundreds of years. So yeah, I think just like acknowledging that it's there, and like when all three of us become famous YA authors or movie makers or whatever it is that's in our future, we'll make like I don't know,
We'll create
make like
goblins
the
that aren't
humans.
anti.
The goblin will be the protagonist, yeah, and then the humans will be the greedy hoarders, and like that's not the most inaccurate thing I've ever read. Like, no.
Wow, are you like anti-human? Are you like
I
racist?
am absolutely, yeah. Well, I'm transhuman. Didn't you hear my
Oh,
spiel from before?
okay. Yeah, that's right. The level of sarcasm of this conversation has just been like increasing steadily.
Absolutely. SAS levels are high.
Yeah. um, I think the only other thing that I um, wrote on this subject, on like that I have for prompts, is just like talking about Draco and his attitude towards Muggleborns, um, because he says things like, "Oh, I don't think they should be let in into the school," and that's like a thing that is common in our world. It's not new. Um,
No, it's
I don't even know what questions there are other than just like examples of that, but there's like there's so many examples of that. Obviously, there's
yeah.
examples in the U.S. of like having like separate but equal, which no.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I was watching Bring It On All or Nothing earlier today, which is a cultural staple. and
This is
and
gonna be good. I
when
already know it.
and like I mean, there's like interesting racial divide represented in that movie, which I think is very very enlightening for the context of this conversation. Um, But like, okay, even like there was, I want to find this article. So apparently there was a mural that was painted and was approved of two boys kissing. I don't know if it was in Edmonton, but it definitely was in Alberta. And then like after the mural went up, it got like taken down and like there's this whole thing. And I mean that's also not new, right? Like people not being permitted in on the basis of like their sexual orientation or gender identification, all of that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I think a lot, also with like economic class,
Yeah.
there's a lot of poor people shouldn't be allowed in, and
That's actually a really good example because I often hear people being upset about like a homeless person being in a
yeah,
place. I actually saw a homeless person get kicked out of a place for sitting inside the like a fast food place. They got kicked out for doing absolutely nothing, and I yeah was upset.
yeah,
So was my mother, who complained to the management
good for her.
that yeah, because she was like, what was he doing? Why was he kicked out? Why? And the manager was like, well, he smells or something like that. And I was like, yeah, because it wasn't even like he was going up to people asking for money. He was literally sitting in a booth, and it wasn't like crowded.
Yeah, I mean at Starbucks we've had to when I used to work at Starbucks, I had to sometimes ask people to leave if they were soliciting, but like I remember once we were closing up and there was this guy waiting outside in the cold and like when we open the safe we have to let everyone out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like myself and the shift supervisor saw this guy just like outside and we were like, just stay inside for like the next half hour because it's like winter and he's freezing. And we're like, whatever, dude, you're not gonna like take on three like this. We had this like really tall dude who worked with us at the time. We're like, you're not causing any trouble. Just like stay inside and stay warm and things like that. But like I think that comparison is pretty relevant in like when talking about Draco Malfoy, because like
Yeah.
it's for him it's like race or it's not race, it's class. That's like the big
Yeah.
thing for him.
Yeah, he's very classist.
Like I wonder what he thinks of like really rich muggles. Like does he have an opinion on them?
Well, the Malfoy family, according to Pottermore, used to be friends with Muggles who were rich, and then
Really?
it was not appropriate to like Muggles, so then they just hated Muggles.
I didn't know that. I should probably read Pottermore, hey?
There's some good stuff on there.
That's really interesting.
Also,
Yeah.
nice Canadian A.
And it's also interesting, like, with that to know that it's not the muggleness of them that bothers them so much as it is the like low class riffraff part of them.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I think at this point for Draco, it's definitely the Muggleness. But
Yeah.
like the families in Slytherin, they will behave in whatever way is gonna get them up to the top, and they'll raise their kids with whatever beliefs are the socially acceptable ones to get them. That it's not about like what are they really like. It's about like I don't know, Slytherins.
Mm-hmm.
I like Slytherins.
I like Slytherins too.
Yeah.
I'm not biased at all.
No,
Yeah,
I am house fluid, so
you are.
so I'm not biased at all.
Absolutely not. You're extra non-biased.
I hate everyone the same. Now I hate when people say that. They're just like, I'm not racist. I hate everyone equally. I'm like, that's not. That's how racism works.
Like, how do they expect people to respond to that? Like, good for you? Question mark.
I'm like, I like people.
I'm frustrated with them, but generally I think they're good.
Yeah, it's
Amazing.
okay, but so our hour for live streaming is up, and I don't want there to be a very long video for people who want to catch up on conversation. So I'm gonna stop broadcasting, which this thing won't end, but the broadcast will.
Bye.
Bye.
So bye, people who might have watched this.